Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Monday, 21st April 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Russia's proposed Easter ceasefire in the ongoing conflict with Ukraine was met with skepticism, as President Volodymyr Zelenskyy reported continued Russian attacks and drone activity, citing 59 cases of shelling and 5 assault actions. Zelenskyy accused Russia of a public relations ploy and reaffirmed Ukraine's offer to extend the truce for 30 days. Despite the alleged breaches, Russia and Ukraine completed the largest prisoner exchange since the war began, while Ukrainians marked Easter amid the ruins of war, doubtful of any genuine ceasefire. Turning to the United States, a French minister warned of potential economic instability should Federal Reserve Chair Powell be fired. The U.S. is reportedly pursuing a business-like approach with Iran, seeking maximum concessions while also conducting airstrikes against Iranian-backed forces in Yemen, including the bombing of Hodeida's airport. Professor Hassan Ahmadian argues that these actions signal a potential confrontation. Concerns are also mounting that the U.S. may fall behind China in shaping advanced technology in the global south. In health news, the FDA granted Alibaba's Demo Academy a breakthrough device designation for its pancreatic cancer detecting AI model. Protests have erupted across cities against President Trump's deportation policies and perceived assaults on the rule of law, exemplified by the deportation of Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Adi Alexander, the father of Gaza, hostage Idan Alexander, is urging the U.S. to engage in talks with Hamas to secure his son's release. A draft executive order from the Trump administration proposed significant restructuring of the State Department, including cuts to sub-Saharan operations and bureaus related to climate, refugees, human rights, and gender equality. A Guttmacher report revealed that 155,000 people crossed state lines for abortions in 2024, doubling the number from 2020 following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, with us abortion providers performing over 1 million abortions for the second consecutive year. Aditya Wahyu Harsono, an Indonesian father with a special needs infant, was detained by ICE after his U.S. student visa was secretly revoked, and he remains in custody pending a hearing. In China, concerns are reportedly growing regarding North Korea's deepening military alliance with Russia, potentially jeopardizing Beijing's interests and influence. The Chinese ambassador also cautioned the U.S. against repeating tariff mistakes reminiscent of the Great Depression era. In international relations, RAF fighter jets were scrambled twice last week to intercept Russian aircraft flying near NATO airspace over the Baltic Sea, including an Ilyushin Il-20 intelligence aircraft. An ASEAN summit is being viewed as a crucial venue for the U.S. and China to potentially engage in trade negotiations. A Soyuz capsule carrying 1 American and 2 Russian astronauts safely returned to Earth, landing in Kazakhstan. The Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft carried NASA and Russian astronauts, landing in Kazakhstan on US astronaut Donald Petty's 70th birthday. Meanwhile, Australia is facing potential challenges with its submarine delivery goals due to Donald Trump's tariffs, which have impacted about 1/3 of the steel and aluminum used in US naval vessels, including those destined for the AUKUS submarines. Israel's military has acknowledged professional failures in the deaths of 15 rescue workers in Gaza, dismissing a deputy commander for an inaccurate report on the shooting. The investigation revealed a mistaken assessment of ambulances as Hamas-affiliated due to poor visibility. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists Israel must continue fighting in Gaza until Hamas is destroyed, facing pressure from hostage families and retired soldiers. Hamas maintains it will only release hostages under a deal ending the war. Airstrikes continue including one on a displacement camp, exacerbating Gaza's humanitarian crisis due to a 7-week blockade. Israeli police also clashed with Christian worshippers in East Jerusalem during Easter celebrations. Turning to Lebanon, President Joseph Aoun described disarming Hezbollah as delicate. The Lebanese army says it thwarted a rocket attack on Israel, detaining individuals allegedly planning attacks and confiscating weapons. Internationally, Pope Francis used his Easter address at the Vatican to call for a Gaza ceasefire, signaling increasing concern over Israel's military action. United Kingdom's clinical trials are facing Brexit-related headwinds, with cancer treatment trials particularly affected by increased bureaucracy and a surge in drug import expenses. Prison officers in the UK are set to discuss the provision of electric stun guns for high-risk prisons with Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, prompted by an attack on 3 guards at HMP Frankland, allegedly involving convicted terrorist Hasham Abedi. Culinary trends in Britain are seeing a rise in the use of diverse citrus fruits, with retailers like M&S stocking kumquats and Waitrose noting increased yuzu juice sales. Former UK Prime Minister Theresa May has recently been advocating for stronger global leadership in combating modern slavery. Turning to Ukraine and Russia, both nations have traded accusations of violating a declared Easter truce. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy affirmed Ukraine's adherence to the truce, but cited artillery fire and drone attacks, necessitating a response from his forces, while Russia has accused Ukraine of violating the agreed ceasefire. These events transpired after several months of attempts by former U.S. President Donald Trump to mediate a truce between Moscow and Kyiv. In Russia, the need for personnel in the ongoing conflict is driving a global recruitment drive, with videos targeting Mandarin speakers promising substantial compensation and the allure of heroism to prospective combatants. Australia's political landscape is heating up as the election draws near, with recent polls indicating a potential shift in favour of the Labour Party. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese appears confident, a contrast from his 2022 campaign approach. Opposition leader Peter Dutton is under pressure to reverse the trend as the coalition struggles to gain traction. The coalition's climate policy is under fire, specifically their plan to dismantle Labour's initiatives without presenting clear alternatives, emphasizing fossil fuels and nuclear energy beyond 2040. Adam Bant, representing the Greens, is focusing on housing affordability and gas policy, advocating for measures to improve homeownership opportunities for younger Australians. Labour is considering bolstering Australia's animal welfare body, following an investigation revealing breaches in export abattoirs, where government veterinarians noted significant welfare issues. Senator Mackenzie has accused Minister Watt of misleading statements about Medicare claims during the election campaign. India is at the centre of several international discussions. The EU sees India as a key partner in creating global rules for space activities, especially regarding space debris and cybersecurity. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will soon visit India for talks on boosting trade and geopolitical cooperation, with the goal of reaching a trade agreement. Adding to the diplomatic activity, Elon Musk is planning a visit to India later this year. Domestically, a building collapse in India led to 11 deaths, raising concerns about building safety and prompting accusations of illegal construction by the municipal government. Turning to Zambia, an Indian citizen was arrested at an airport while trying to smuggle us $2.80 million in cash and gold. Zambian authorities are warning that they will punish anyone involved in international organized crime. Japan is experiencing rising rice prices, leading retailers to promote less expensive foreign rice. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has asserted that Japan will not compromise on food safety during trade talks with the U.S., hinting at increased LN imports as a possible negotiating strategy. Japan is considering revising its car safety standards to help forge a trade deal with the United States, following talks about tariffs. Aki Abe, the widow of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, has highlighted the connection between Taiwan's and Japan's security. Social media is fueling a rise in sex tourism in Japan because of the weak yen, the nation's legal framework around the sex industry, and easily available online content, creating financial strain and lower service costs for women. Protests are happening as citizens seek WHAM for civilians and others they claim were unfairly excluded from state compensation, alleging government discrimination. Takuya Onishi of Japan now commands the International Space Station, succeeding Alexei Ovchinin of Russia. The Japanese government is currently debating whether it has the authority to ban AI-generated GIF-like images. 2 Japanese warships have docked at Cambodia's Chinese renovated naval base, the first time vessels have used the location. China is grappling with the economic fallout of the US-China tariff war, impacting aircraft deliveries like the Boeing 737 MAX, which was returned to the US due to duty-free status complications. Ford has also adjusted its export strategies to China amid the trade dispute, relying on its joint manufacturing operations with local partners. There are increasing calls within China to pressure unfriendly nations, including the US, to adopt the Chinese currency for trade settlements. Vietnam has joined other Southeast Asian nations in utilizing comic-made aircraft, which will be leased and operated by Chengdu Airlines. A recent test in China involved a non-nuclear hydrogen bomb, producing an intense fireball lasting significantly longer than TNT's flash. Domestically, Hainan province in China has achieved success in cultivating China-grown durian, though it faces stiff competition from Southeast Asian imports. The popularity of mobile romance games has fueled a new service called Casio's commissioning in China. Turning to the United States, the ongoing trade conflict with China continues to cause economic ripples, particularly in the aerospace sector. With the Boeing 737 MAX jets return, highlighting the tariff-related complications. Ford's export adjustments to China further underscore the impact of these trade tensions. China's potential move to encourage countries like the US to use its currency is a point of concern. Across the Atlantic in the United Kingdom, Prince Andrew was seen at the Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle, alongside King Charles. This appearance followed allegations that a spy assisted him in writing birthday letters to China's president. Meanwhile, Vietnam's decision to lease and operate comic-made aircraft from Chengdu Airlines marks a significant step in its aviation sector. Syria is grappling with a precarious peace following the ouster of al-Assad, evidenced by rising sectarian violence and the daunting task of reconstruction. A recent killing spree in Benias, driven by a sectarian animosity, underscores the fragility of the new government's control after nearly 14 years of civil war. Massacres are spreading across towns along Syria's Mediterranean coast. Landmines and unexploded ordnance continue to inflict casualties nationwide. However, a sign of potential recovery has emerged with Syria receiving its first wheat shipment since the regime change, suggesting a move away from dependence on overland imports. The United States and Iran are making headway in nuclear program negotiations. Both countries will assign experts to create a deal framework. More talks are scheduled. Steve Witkoff, President Trump's envoy, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi met directly in Rome. Donald Trump warned of military action if a new deal isn't swiftly achieved. Shifting focus to Saudi Arabia, the nation is supporting the U.S.-Iran talks. Reports indicate Trump might reinstate a prior agreement. Russia could be key to any future agreement. Russia may receive Iran's enriched uranium. It could also arbitrate any violations. Germany is grappling with the aftermath of a pro-Palestinian protest, leading to deportation proceedings against 4 individuals, including 1 American and 3 EU citizens from Ireland and Poland. These individuals are contesting the orders, citing a lack of clarity regarding the alleged offenses. In separate news, a fatal shooting in a spa town north of Frankfurt resulting in 2 deaths, is under active investigation by the police. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government faces increasing pressure over its handling of foreign interference allegations. Opposition parties are demanding a public inquiry into claims that China attempted to influence the 2019 and 2019 and 2021 federal elections. These allegations include illicit funding to candidates and the spread of disinformation. Turning to France, President Emmanuel Macron is facing renewed protests and strikes over his controversial pension reforms. The reforms, which raised the retirement age from 62 to 64, have sparked widespread discontent and labor action across the country. Unions are vowing to continue their opposition, raising concerns about potential disruptions to daily life and the economy. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is navigating a challenging economic landscape as inflation remains stubbornly high. The Bank of England is under pressure to raise interest rates further, despite concerns about triggering a recession. Sunak's government is also grappling with ongoing strikes by public sector workers demanding better pay and working conditions. Tunisia is seeing increased authoritarian measures as President Kais Saied's government cracks down on dissent. A recent court decision sentenced around 40 people, including key political opponents, to lengthy prison sentences, some extending up to 66 years. Turning to the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, China has released a statement regarding the continuing conflict between the 2 nations. While Beijing has expressed its views, analysts believe that this action does not signal any major change in China's diplomatic strategy for the region. Moving across the globe to the United States, there's a peculiar historical note from 1859. In San Francisco, Joshua Norton, a South African immigrant, famously proclaimed himself the Emperor of the United States, adding an interesting chapter to the city's vibrant past. Canada is gearing up for a federal election on April 28th, where Mark Carney, the recently elected leader of the Liberal Party, will be vying for a seat representing an Ottawa suburb. This election marks Carney's debut as a political candidate. Malaysia has witnessed a remarkable surge in durian exports to China, experiencing a tenfold increase compared to the previous year, fueled by the Chinese market's robust appetite for naturally ripened durian fruit. Despite this surge, Thailand continues to hold its position as the leading supplier of durian to China. Further, Malaysia bid farewell to giant pandas Fuwa and Fengyi, returning them to China after an 11-year stay, with the exchange occurring under a new panda conservation agreement, personally endorsed by President Xi. Pakistan is facing diplomatic pressure from Afghanistan regarding the ongoing deportation of Afghan citizens. The Afghan foreign minister expressed disappointment over the matter to Pakistani officials. Afghans in Pakistan have reported arbitrary arrests, extortion, and harassment by Pakistani authorities during the deportation process. These actions are contributing to strained relations between the 2 nations. Senegal is seeing a shift in perceptions regarding agriculture, spurred by Thierno Agne's successful strawberry farm. His venture challenges the long-held belief that farming is only for the poor, elderly, and uneducated. Agne's success is making agriculture a more attractive career path for younger generations. Tunisia's judicial system recently delivered harsh verdicts in a mass trial, sentencing politicians, businessmen, and lawyers to prison terms spanning 13 to 66 years. Critics of President Kais Saied claim the trial was politically motivated to strengthen his authoritarian rule. Businessman Kamel Daif received the longest sentence of 66 years. An opposition figure, Hayam Turki, was given 48 years. In Argentina, President Javier Milei continues his austerity measures. These aim to curb inflation and reduce the national debt. Public sector job cuts and privatization of state-owned enterprises are key strategies. Meanwhile, Brazil is experiencing increased deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Environmental groups are urging the government to strengthen enforcement of environmental laws. International pressure is mounting on Brazil to protect the Amazon. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government faces increasing pressure regarding housing affordability. New policies are being debated to address rising rents and home prices. These include incentives for building more affordable housing units. In China, economic growth is slowing, raising concerns about global economic stability. The government is implementing measures to stimulate domestic demand. These include infrastructure projects and tax cuts for businesses. Over in France, protests are ongoing against pension reforms. These reforms raise the retirement age. The government defends the changes as necessary for long-term fiscal stability. Germany's industrial output has declined, signaling a potential recession. The government is considering stimulus packages to boost manufacturing. High energy costs and global supply chain disruptions are contributing factors. In India, the general election is underway. Results will determine the next government. Economic development and social welfare are key issues for voters. Israel is facing continued international scrutiny over its military operations in Gaza. Negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage release are ongoing. Humanitarian aid efforts are struggling to reach those in need. Japan's population is aging rapidly, creating challenges for the social security system. The government is exploring ways to encourage higher birth rates. Immigration policies are also under review. In Russia, the war in Ukraine continues to impact the economy. International sanctions are limiting access to technology and financial markets. The government is seeking closer ties with other nations to mitigate the impact. Saudi Arabia is investing heavily in renewable energy projects. This aims to diversify its economy away from oil. The country is seeking to become a leader in green technologies. Moving to South Africa, the ruling African National Congress, ANC, is facing declining popularity. Corruption and unemployment are major concerns for voters. The upcoming elections are seen as a critical test for the party. In Ukraine, the conflict with Russia continues, with intense fighting in the east. International support for Ukraine remains strong. Humanitarian assistance is being provided to displaced populations. The United Kingdom is grappling with rising inflation and cost of living pressures. The government is implementing measures to support vulnerable households. Interest rates have been raised to combat inflation. Finally, in the United States, the presidential election campaign is intensifying. Key issues include the economy, immigration, and healthcare. Debates over policy differences are becoming more pronounced. Philippines analysts foresee continuing violence in the country's political landscape. Turning to China, Chinese experts are urging compromise and restraint in public rhetoric to avoid escalating conflicts in the disputed waterway. Separately, a Chinese executive was taken into custody related to the collapse of a 30-story building in Bangkok. In Thailand, a 30-story tower in Bangkok collapsed in the aftermath of an earthquake in Myanmar, leading to the arrest of a Chinese executive and accounting for 47 deaths, with 47 individuals still missing. The recent earthquake in Myanmar triggered the collapse of the Bangkok Tower, tragically resulting in 47 fatalities and leaving 47 people unaccounted for. France's president is taking on a prominent international role to champion a two-state solution, stepping into a perceived leadership gap left by Washington, a move potentially fraught with consequences. Ecuadorian authorities have declared a state of high alert following intelligence, suggesting a possible assassination attempt against President Daniel Noboa, though no specific evidence has been disclosed. Qatar's lead negotiator is currently working to revive peace talks pertaining to Gaza. Previously, on January 15th, Qatar, in partnership with the United States and Egypt, played a key role in brokering a truce in Gaza, which brought an end to more than a year of intense conflict. In Dr. Congo, the political party of former President Joseph Kabila has been suspended amid allegations of ties to the Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group. The 53-year-old politician also faces accusations of high treason. Nigeria is grappling with escalating violence as attacks by suspected cattle herders in Benue State have claimed the lives of 56 people, according to Governor Hyacinth Alia. South Korea faces a growing crisis of AI-perpetrated sex crimes, with victims reporting inadequate support from law enforcement and sex educators, advocating for a fundamental shift in gender attitudes to address the underlying causes. Turning to Japan-US relations, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has clarified that security matters will be excluded from upcoming trade negotiations with the United States, a decision made despite President Trump's differing views. Hungary's slide away from democratic norms is being closely examined by political scientists, including those with ties to the Trump administration, as they seek to understand the dynamics of democratic erosion. The ongoing war in Sudan, as observed by Mohi Omer, appears to be stalemated, with neither side demonstrating the capacity for outright victory, casting doubt on the viability of future negotiations. Belarus, under President Alexander Lukashenko's authoritarian leadership, has imprisoned numerous journalists in recent years as part of a widespread crackdown on dissent and freedom of expression. Haiti is facing a severe crisis as gangs tighten their grip on Port-au-Prince, pushing the capital towards a state of near total control by armed groups. Recent international protests have seen students in Serbia taking to the streets, while Yemen has been the site of anti-US rallies, reflecting a range of global tensions. Zimbabwe's artistic heritage is being showcased in Oxford through an exhibition of Zimbabwean stone sculptures, offering context to the controversial legacy of British colonialist Cecil John Rhodes and supporting the revival of Zimbabwean stone carving traditions. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.